Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Probably who's back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. Hawks coming off another loss, 3 in a row now. The second one in a back-to-back against the LA teams. This time the Clippers, 131-105. And if you're up late and watched it, obviously I'm sure you're not happy, especially the last 2 days. Not happy. West Coast trip. We're going up late. We're staying up late. We're losing games. It's not a fun time. Whatever, right? But that's where we are right now. And I'm really not that bothered by it. Obviously, it's not fun. It's not fun watching it for sure. But I'll explain to you guys why I'm not going crazy about this or anything, right now, like I said. So we'll go into that in this Believe in Hawks episode. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode for show. Obviously, guys, if you enjoy the episode, subscribe to the channel, like the video as well. Leave comments down below about anything we discuss in this video. Also, for my audio listeners, leave a rating and a review as well about the pod. So, sorry, I checked something. But yeah, so definitely do that for sure. And like I said, guys, appreciate you guys tuning in. So, like I said, Hawks lose tonight, another blowout, 131-105 to the Clippers in a game where we had the Amir Coffey legacy game tonight. Amir Coffey, big game for them coming off the bench. He had 17 points. In a game also, of course, Kawhi Leonard makes his return to the Clippers in this game. And so the Hawks now are back at 500. They play Utah next, so you're hopeful that they win that game, get back to over 500. And then the Suns, even with a losing record, they do have, the big three. I don't think all of them have been playing as of recently, but again, I could see it's the Hawks. Teams love getting their team squads all back and healthy when they play each other. So, but I think they've been playing these last few games too. So I don't think this is something where this is new. I just think what you have is that your guys are they don't have a great team overall. So, but we'll get into that later in the podcast. But let me go into this Clippers Hawks thing. So, obviously, tonight, Jalen didn't play again, shoulder soreness. Bogey, that he wasn't going to play in a back-to-back, injury management. And obviously, on Twitter, a lot of Hawks fans aren't really happy about what they're seeing from the team right now. A lot of guys are obviously going into full panic mode. Oh, my God, we're so bad. Oh, my God, trade so-and-so. Oh, my God, we can't do anything right. Oh, my God, this team is the worst team ever, right? And, for me, I just don't view things like that. For me, I knew their goal before the season was development and getting these guys up and giving guys opportunities to grow and become players that they need them to become down the line. But that to me is just the big thing. But I also think, look where the Hawks are right now. Because some of you probably before the season thought the Hawks were going to be bad. There are some people who thought the Hawks were going to be bad, which means that we wouldn't even be 500 right now, right? And, I feel like we, as fans, we sit and see our team and we're like, if they're doing well, we want to push it. We want to say, okay, well, we're doing well. We're winning some games. We're over 500. Let's go. Let's push, blah. The Hawks clearly, and I'll say this again what Landry said before the year. He said, we like where we are, but we aren't where we want to be yet. He told you that before the year. But the roster was definitely better and in better shape than they've been in the last couple. So I think the Hawks really, we've seen when they're at full strength, they can compete with the majority of teams in this league. We have seen that, literally. The Hawks compete with some of the best teams in the NBA when they're at full strength. We have seen the numbers reflect that they need Trae Young and Jalen Johnson both healthy for them to have chances. They have a couple of wins with one of them out or the other guy out, or, obviously the Boston win when Trae was out, or obviously the Sacramento win when Jalen was out. We have wins without them, but that's not going to be a good enough team to win consistently, right? And you've played tougher teams. You've played Denver, who was a terrible matchup. The Lakers, you usually have LeBron and AD always go off against the Hawks. The key in those games is, can you stop the others? You got Dalton Connect, who was bad for about a whole month, and now he shot good in that game. And I was like, when he shot well, I was like, they're not going to win this game because if they can't stop the others, LeBron and AD going to do their thing. And then tonight against the Clippers, you got Kawhi coming back. So I was like, they're going to probably get an emotional high from Kawhi Leonard coming back. And I just was like, I honestly am like, I was not going to be surprised if we went 0-3 on the West Coast against Denver in those three. I said I would not be shocked. Now, they tried to win the Lakers game. And literally, if DeAndre Hunter played more like he did tonight than he played on Friday, they would have had a shot to beat the Lakers. Plus, also, Bogey didn't give them a lot. Their bench scoring really failed them against the Lakers. You know? And tonight, when you don't have either one, I mean, Garrison had a decent game tonight, but it's Jalen when you lose him where it hurts them the most, because they don't have really a backup four. Your backup four technically is Devin Roddy, and they don't want to play him a lot, realistically. They don't want to play him a lot because they understand what he is. And so you really come into a night where, okay, Trey gives you 20, Hunter gives you 18. That's 38. Garrison Matthews gives you 15, right? He gives you more. But outside that, Rishi K gave you 13. Dicey gave you 11, but Krejci gave you 9. Capella gave you 6. Okongwu gave you 4, and Ronnie gave you 9. You need more. You just need more, right? And so I just kind of view it as like right now the Hawks are just getting through the road trip. I would say tonight, though, was one of probably the worst effort games I've seen. The sloppy play, which we've talked about on this podcast multiple times, that the Hawks, when they just become turnover machines, and then that's what kills the Hawks in so many of their losses. It's just the turnovers. That's what allows teams that shouldn't be competing with them to compete. And then that also is what a great team who the Hawks have to play a cleaner game against, that's how they can they can pull away from this team. Because if you think about this, right? I mentioned that the Hawks can win at full strength, right? But backup point guard has been a major question mark. In the Lakers game, they did something interesting. They went with Dyson as the backup point, which that has had some mixed results, but I think Dyson has been your best player from that spot. He plays the game a bit differently offensively when he is the backup point. He seems more aggressive. I think also because he is a bit of a bigger player, he attacks more because he knows, well, if I'm getting guarded by the one, then there may be a smaller player, and that's someone I can attack offensively and try to get to the rim. And they had Garrison in the rotation instead of Vic Krejci. So obviously with that move, you're electing for more offense and shooting, which is something that we've also said the Hawks need, is more shooting. An election of, okay, we're going to lose some defense, right? And I thought that was really interesting to see that, because that's the first time they've done that intentionally, like in a rotation. And so I'm curious to know if that's something they would do again if they get it back to full strength. If they would go back to a Dyson-led backup unit and then go with Garrison as that ninth guy instead of it being a Krejci. Just something to keep an eye on, of course. Obviously, again, with Johnson missing tonight, maybe Larry Nance, if he was healthy, which he's going to be apparently reevaluated in 2 weeks after having his thumb surgery. But, you hope, he's not going to be out that long. And, he would probably be back up for it, but obviously he's not available to the team. So, the thing is, I don't think the Hawks are looking at this season and they're like, we have to push and become a second-round playoff team or something, to me. I think so many people talk about Trae Young and he doesn't have that much time left. He doesn't have that much time in his prime. This is basketball. This man, Trae Young, can probably average what he's averaging right now until he's 32, 33. That man has a whole other contract left in him. I don't think that's a concern to me at the very moment with the Hawks. What I'm looking at with them is that They obviously know where their holes are. What the Hawks do is they evaluate their issues and say, how can we improve it? And the thing is, with their money limitations, they are still money strapped. They can't go above a certain line of money. So when they make moves and they make trades, the problem is the roster is still at a point where if they trade one guy from their main 8, now whatever that guy gave them, they don't get anymore. Like if they trade Clint, you don't have size. If you trade Bogey, you still retain shooting, but all the other things that Bogey can do for you, you lose. Because Garrison doesn't really do any of those other things, like ball handling, cutting to the rim, things like that. He's improved it. He's getting better at it, and that's great. But, I mean, there's a reason why Bogey's very valuable. You trade DeAndre Hunter. I mean, the way he's playing, who else off the bench is giving you that? Like there's not really a great person to trade and say, we got something to replace that, and we can get better somewhere else. Your closest option is probably Bogey in that situation, right? Like I said, you still got to figure out what you're going to do with the backup point guard position. But again, because of the money limitations, the Hawks are not going to go and spend a lot of money on one. I mean, and someone mentioned this earlier today. They talked about how the Hawks center position, there's not a lot of great centers that fit what this team actually needs. Because because the Hawks are, the way they are with how they're constructed and how things are with their needs, this is what you're going to probably get. This team relies very, very heavily on Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. That is just how the team is constructed, right? And eventually, they have to continue to develop this team and structure this team to a point where they can survive without one. Now, obviously, again, it's different because, those types of players do so much. When you lose them, you're going to feel it. But you want to be able to mitigate it if you can, right? And so, I just kind of look at how things are going right now, and I'm not really overly concerned. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, because they know what they got to do. I mean, this is pretty clear. Because there's some things they can improve, like the turnovers that can be improved by adding another ball handler, of course. But some of the turnovers they make is just sloppy. Like tonight, I said tonight, the effort was not good against the Clippers. They just made sloppy turnovers. I think Glenn Willis posted a stat where the Hawks actually won the half-court battle. They actually won in half-court scoring, but they got blown out. They gave the Clippers way too many easy baskets. Way too many easy baskets. Too many. Brad Rowland also had a stat. The Hawks had a 68.8 offensive rating when Trae Young was on the bench. It had a 28% turnover rate when Trae Young was on the bench. Yeah. I mean, all you can do is give guys opportunities at that spot, at backup point. But at the end of the day, the Hawks are going to have to make a move to do something with that spot. But as I've mentioned, with the center position, too, like, and sorry if I jumped around. I had to cough so that I lost what I forgot what I was trying to say when I initially had to make a cut in the video or the episode to now. So sorry if I'm looping back around, but like if you think about guys like Vucevic, like let me name a couple of centers like Vucevic. We're talking about centers for the Hawks, right? Because that's been a big thing that fans have brought up recently. Vucevic gives you offense. He'll be an upgrade over Capella offensively, but he's not really a great defender. So again, that's more of if you make that move, you're going more all in on offense. I've heard Claxton. He's a good rim protector, a good young player. I just don't know if that's what the Hawks want. Because I think too, ideally, the Hawks would like a player. The thing is, the way they want to play, I feel like they want another big who can shoot. And so you got to think about what bigs can shoot. Like, that's why when people have talked about guys, you know, who are good rim protectors, it's like, well, yeah, the Hawks want that, but they're also like, well, we kind of, have guy in Clint Capella, even though he's not what he used to be. I mean, I think they want a guy who can stretch the floor, that because they want that spacing. That's something they've always talked about: spacing, spacing, spacing. They want to create spacing, and I think that they understand that they're more likely to honestly get a center they want through the draft than they are through free agency or trade. A guy I would love for them to do, which, and this is interesting if the Suns go in this direction. He's not super big, though. So, again, size is not going to necessarily come from him, but I would love a Royce O'Neal. I would love a guy like him because he breaks shooting, he creates spacing, he defends. He is a guy who I think would be great with this team and could fill that backup four role for the Hawks, right? And then I don't know if maybe at times, and obviously the Hawks, again, this is assuming they keep Clint and they have a Kongwu. I mean, you now have a more stable front court in that regard and can mitigate whatever you don't get from when Capella's on the floor. And without having to put Hunter at that spot necessarily, you can just say, okay, Royce O'Neal can fill in there. But at the center spot, I mean, you're pretty much probably going to look at the draft and kind of figure out who you want from that. Because realistically, it depends on what type of player you want that's going to fit what this team wants to become moving forward, And so you got to figure that out. And then, like I said, the backup point guard position, the Hawks don't have a lot of money, so they're not going to spend big. They're not going to pay a lot for a guy, but they need a guy who can kind of run the show and not turn the ball over. Everybody's always talked about perfect fit TJ McConnell. Obviously, the thing is because he's a really good playmaking guy. And he could step up at times offensively. But again, in saying that, the Hawks also, I think they really hope Kobe would work out. And Kobe's in his second year. He's out for the second year. Then I know people are just ready to give up on that. But I've said I don't know if the Hawks are going to give up on it. They're going to try to survive this season, and then they're going to reevaluate if they need to, give Kobe another shot. Because I don't think they're going to cut him regardless if they don't play him or not. I just think, you do have to think, okay, we got to be more prepared if he goes down. Because people forget this too. Before the season, I actually asked this question. I asked this question on my Twitter. You can follow me by Score 2K. I asked if Trey or Kobe goes down, who's the three? Who's the backup to that? Do we like our backups? And people were like, oh yeah, we're fine. We're fine. I think I asked it basically almost like, was it a need? And basically we're like, no, Dicey can play point. Fake Krejci can play point. We're fine. And now it's like, we're not fine. Especially, I think the big issue is that the Hawks want to have such a ball movement motion offense, and yet you don't have the necessary playmakers unless Trey and Jalen are playing to actually execute the offense. Because also, don't forget, when Dyson was playing those primary backup point guard minutes against the Lakers, the Hawks only had 4 turnovers in the first half. They played clean basketball against the Lakers, even running that rotation. And so that may be what the Hawks are trying to use as a solution at that position to get them through, the backup point guard stuff. And like I said, the Hawks probably are not – I don't know how aggressive this Hawks team is going to be when it comes to a point guard for right now. I see more Hawks rumors heating up as we get closer to the deadline. You know who's going to be available for them. Clint, Zeller are going to be 2 names. Is someone else potentially involved in that? We'll have to see. We'll have to see what the Hawks do. But I don't think the Hawks are also viewing this as a listen, we got to do everything we can to maximize our win total this year. I mean, at the end of the day, the way the Eastern Conference is going right now, guys, the Eastern Conference is not going to run away from the Hawks. The Hawks are still going to be very much in play for that 6th and that 5th seed and potentially that 4th seed. And realistically, if you're in that, because that's why to me, I also am not panicking because in years past, I felt like this team was always playing with a very, it just felt like, this team was going through the motions of like, they come out hot, they score points, but they can't stop anybody. And it's very easy if they just get the hard stretch of games in a row, this team will just fall off. And then, they eventually did the end of the year last year. Like, I really actually have more confidence in this team to go and beat Utah and then potentially beat the Suns. And if you beat the Suns, now you're back to 20-18. And you're pretty much probably, again, 5th seed, 6th seed in the Eastern Conference with that. And so, again, what changes you need to make, but at the same time, you're not going to force anything. You're not going to push anything. You're not going to be overly aggressive about anything. You're just going to let things play out and hope guys get better. Ricochet gets better. Dyson gets more confidence, different things like that. But at the same time, if you see a deal that you like, I think Landry will pull the trigger on it. And it just depends on what that is. So, for me, that's why I am not in panic mode like other people are. People are talking about, the Lakers game, we need a center. And I'm just like, guys, I understand we could be better at center. But this Hawks team has showed you they're not just going to make a move to make a move. If we could get into the first overall draft pick conversation and talk about if they should have picked with Sarr or Klingon anyway, sure. But at the same time, we could make an argument. Well, shoot, if you didn't have Ricochet and you lost Jalen Johnson, you still be in the exact same spot you were before. Just more with less wing. You think Devin Rodney played minutes tonight as much as he did? He might play more if Ricochet was the one who wasn't here. So, I'm not going crazy. And I mean, shoot, Trae Young through these 3 games have played well. He's had 30, and he had 20 tonight, but I mean, he's been good through these games. Like to me, I would be more concerned if we were at full strength and we were getting blown out like this. Because then you could make the argument, and people may say, well, the Lakers game, but at the same time, I kind of told you how that game was going to go and what was needed. And listen, Jalen Johnson, some people may be questioning why he's not playing through his shoulder injury. If you watch that Lakers game, you could tell he was playing through some pain. And so clearly this is something that comes up for him, and they're trying to manage it, and the Hawks have shown they're not going to push their players to play through injuries if they feel like it's something that could bother them long term. Or, if they continue to play. Like Trae, you notice with Trae, he'll have an injury pop up, he'll miss a game, and then he'll just play through it, right? Where everybody else, I think, Bogey, they're trying to manage. Jalen, they're trying to manage because they also understand, like, you're valuable to us. We don't want to just have you play to play if you're not in a great, healthy space to play. They get 2 days off after this game before you get Utah. Like I said, Utah's game is probably a game where you would hope to see Jalen Johnson back. In that one, we'll see if Bogey gets back. I would assume Bogey's back. You're back at full strength now against Utah. You should win that game. I hope I'm not having to come on here and talk about a Utah loss. I hope to God I'm not having to come on here and talk about a Utah loss. See, a loss like that would be more like, all right, well, okay. Team something. But, losing to 3 good Western Conference teams, I'm not going to go into panic mode like some are, I'm sorry if I'm jumping around a lot. It's not easy doing these 1 a.m. pods on the East Coast and stuff. Because I'm not really even talking about the game because there's not really much to talk about. Hawks got cooked, giving the ball over, need to clean it up, play with better effort, play better defense, get healthy. I mean, that's as simple as it could get right here. I've told you guys Hawks have a very slim margin of error for them to be successful. And right now, that margin of error is way into the negative right now, and you're seeing it in their play. And so they have to get that thing back where they need it to go, the pendulum back in the right spot if they want to get out of this slump and break it. And like I said, get back above 500 and be still very competitive in the Eastern Conference, which I've said is not running away from them. So we're going to have to see what happens with that. But I think that's all we got here for the Bleeding Hawks podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe and like the channel. Audio listeners do the same thing. I appreciate all you guys. Follow me on Twitter at Bryce_2K. And I think that's about all for me, guys. It's your boy Bryce Lewis. We'll see you next time.